Good evening, everyone. We are back with another live Disney. I was going to say reaction. Then it's not a reaction review. 100 Years of Wonder. We're up to number 36 today, the penultimate one of the Disney Renaissance. I was just about to say that before we went live. I'm amazed how I always keep saying it. How quick this retrospective is going. Now we're not due to finish this until sort of like midway through January, so it's still like an extra half a year. But just to think how far we've come from like the 1930s when we were like talking about like Snow White and everything. And next week is the last one of the Disney Renaissance. It only feels like last week we were bigging up that, oh, we're doing Little Mermaid next, and that's going to be the big one, and it'll all be said and done. So number 36, Mulan, however you're pronouncing it. I'll probably flip-flop between the two pronunciations. 1998 movie, not that piece of shit live-action version that came out a few years ago. 1998, directed by Barry Cook and Tony Bancroft, and we're going to be talking about it. In classic 100 Years of Wonder retrospective fashion, Brian Emery has already got a comment in there from earlier, so I'm just going to read that out real quick. I love this movie. It's so funny. And did you know that Mulan's voice actress has a cameo in the live-action Mulan movie? I didn't know that, but I know I've seen Ming-Na when she was in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. So it's nice to know she's still getting work. She's a really great actress and a wonderful voice for Mulan. But I am not subjecting myself to that live action version. I am sorry. There's not many movies that I turn off. I turned it off 5 minutes in. I maybe even less. I couldn't do it.
I did that with Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, that's an acquired taste movie. I know some people really love that movie. I like the visual style of it, but the humor, it didn't get to me, that one, I must admit.
I wish I turned off the Green Mile, but I sat through that.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare, sir!
Right,
Mulan. This is a pretty big one. This is one that I have seen countless times, as I have with a lot of the Disney Renaissance. You're going to get bored of me saying that, but I'm saying it again. This was my era of Disney, the 90s, growing up. I remember seeing this at the cinema. So 1998, yeah, I would have been 5 years old. I do remember seeing this at the cinema, and the McDonald's toys were a big thing as well. Last week, I don't really remember. No, I do remember the Hercules one. Sorry, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame ones and Pocahontas we talked about. There's certain Disney films in the Disney Renaissance where the merchandising doesn't seem to be as pushed as much, but I do remember it for this one. And it's just one that I've watched. I watched it on repeat as a kid. It was always one of my favorites. The music, the animation style, and the characters fundamentally. Like, I love the supporting characters in there as well. And I think, this just goes to show, well, just because it's a strong woman, like, I could still identify with Mulan's character, and I thought she was like a really badass hero, and the war scenes in the film, that was kind of the scenes that I gravitated more towards as a kid. And it's just one that stayed with me. It's I usually watch this film sort of like once every year. I think I went to see this, it was either earlier this year or it was last year sometime. They did the 25th anniversary rescreening of Mulan at my local Odeon, and I went to see that. I took my mum with me because this is one of her favorites as well. And I went to see it again at on the big screen at the same cinema that I went to see it back in 1998. So clearly I don't get out much or move around a lot because I'm still around the same place. But yeah, absolutely love this one. How about you? What are your opinions on this movie?
I've seen it many times. It's one of I would say it's one of the ones I've probably seen the most. It's one of the ones up there. It's one that every time I see it, I'm like, I recognize it very well. I can quote many points from it. But yeah, and weirdly, it's not one of my. It's not one of my favorites, but I think that's because I've seen it a lot, and it just doesn't hold the same spark for me anymore. It's right. Good, and but yeah, not as a kind of like, I watched it for, yeah, it's good. It's still very good. Like I said, I just think I've overwatched it many years ago. I watched it a lot. I haven't seen it for a while now, but I think I have overwatched it.
Well, you mentioned about the animation style when you were watching it a couple of hours ago. You were saying that you don't know whether Disney have gone in and like done a cleanup job on it and like digitally remastered it or something. I don't think they have. At least I haven't seen that. I don't know if they've just sort of cleaned up a lot of their movies for the Disney Plus platform, which is, where you watched it.
It was weird. It was mainly the Great Wall of China at the beginning. I was like, I swear this wasn't this good before. So I think they have. but I don't know. It was weird because I wish I could watch them side by side with like the original, but like I don't know, the Great Wall China looks very 3D, I don't remember it being as I was going to say pungent. That's not the right word.
No, that's not the right word.
As that, you know what I mean? As sharp. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being as sharp as that before, but yeah, it's the animation's great, and all through it really holds up. I do think I do think they've touched it up a bit, because what I'm seeing with a lot recently is there's obviously a lot of 3D, a lot of computer animation that was like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of that in it, and it stands out where it is kind of like Thingy from Beauty and the Beast 2. What's his name?
Oh, Forte. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, the villain.
Like, he really stands out, and you know, I don't remember him standing out as much as that, but I do a little bit when I was a kid. So maybe it has been improved a little bit. And we're seeing a lot of that, or maybe it's just more adult eyes going, I can see that now, you know?
Yeah, I'm just having I mean, that could be the version that's on Disney Plus. No, you could be right. You could be right. So it says in September 2017, Mulan became available to Netflix users through their streaming service. I don't get how that found its way onto Netflix, because it's a Disney product, but was Disney Plus a thing then in 2017?
No, I don't know when it became a thing, but there was a lot of Disney stuff on Netflix before. I remember a load of Marvel movies were on there. So I think then Disney went, now we're making our own, which Disney do everything, don't they?
Here we go. Yeah, sorry. In November 2019, Mulan became available for streaming on Disney Plus, and it says a year later, so that would be 2020, Mulan was released on 4K Blu-ray. So I'm wondering if that's the version you saw then. You might have saw an upscaled, cleaned up, shiny 4K version, perhaps.
It was, yeah, it was a bit weird, because I like I say, but it's weird because obviously, because I haven't seen it in a few years, it's one of those of, did it always look this good? But yeah, the animation's always been good. It's always been quite stellar. It's always been pretty decent. Yeah, I think we're at a peak at the moment in terms of animation quality.
Oh God, yeah. There was actually something that cropped up on my Facebook. I was going to send it you. It was a still from Prince of Egypt, Treasure Planet, and Atlantis, and it said somewhere in the early 2000s we'd hit like the peak of animation, and then for some reason it all went away. And it was that blend of computer animation and traditional animation sort of wonderfully woven together. And we've seen that in a lot of the Disney Renaissance films, like bits and pieces, especially like crowd shots and like the big epic full scale things. That's where you start to see more of the digital things, and sometimes in the backgrounds and the character and the camera movements and everything. But yeah, I feel like that was sort of like the peak. That was, or like Road to El Dorado, for example. DreamWorks did a lot of that merging with the animation.
Yeah, Road to El Dorado is a good movie.
Yes, fucking great.
It's a weird. Do you know what I found weird about that movie? The bit where he gets cut, he cuts himself, and they're like, "Oh, he's not a god because gods don't bleed." Do you know what I liked about that? That was so subtle. Like, they didn't have to make a point of, "Oh, gods don't bleed." They didn't have to say it. Whereas I think now kids are baby too much. They'd make a point of, "Oh, they might not got that, so we need to make a point of it." But you know what I mean? It's like, hey, look, he did a thumbs up.
Oh, there's a thumbs up.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? There was, I feel like there was a time where movies didn't really over-explain itself, but I feel like now kids' movies do, because they think everyone's dumb.
Yeah, I don't even think you'd get that scene where someone cuts their hand or cuts themselves to show that they bleed. I don't think you'd get that, because, yeah, the kids' movies, just like family movies, have just lost a lot of their edge, I think. You look at the stuff that we were growing up on. And the writing of this, when I was rewatching this, I mean, I already knew this film's good. I'm kind of similar to you, how you know what you're going to get going into Mulan because you've just seen it so many times. But I am always struck by the quality of the writing and the characterization, you know, and just the way that Mulan's written is fantastic. And I'm just like, this is such a far cry from what you get now.
Yeah,
like the subtleties, and just the quality and the intelligence and the complexity of the character. And we saw the modern equivalent of that with the live action version. The bit that I turned it off, it was literally in the prologue. It was like a couple of minutes in. What I love so much about Mulan as a character, but we'll get into the review. We'll talk more about Mulan. This is just the broad strokes now, is the determination. And this goes for all characters from across the board. As a viewer, you want to see characters grow. You want to see them go through trials and tribulations. You want to see them work hard, train. We love a good montage as well. Throw that in, why not?
Like
and
Rocky.
Exactly, yeah. And you see them go from, quoting another Disney song,
zero
now,
to hero.
Yeah. Yes, and we love that. We love to see that, and that makes a more engaging character because you're there with them through their journey. And in the new Mulan, what they do is, she's like, I don't know, like a young girl. She's like 7 or 8 or something.
I was just going to say, you said bear with them. Another one that does that is Brother Bear. That's another one.
That's coming up soon. Stay tuned. We should just do it next week. As you keep saying, we'll just like mess up the order.
Yeah, I think just next week do something to see if anyone notices. I reckon just do Snow White again, just see what happens.
And just go back.
I think I had dementia. Like, yeah, I mean, this is where people think science gone wrong.
But in the new Mulan film, what they do is, and this is where I turn it off. She's a little girl. She's like maybe 6 or like 7 in the intro. I can't remember. And she's like scaling rooftops, and she's doing like all awesome kung fu shit when she's like really young. And they say that she possesses the magical, mystical power of Qi, which allows her to do all of these crazy, death-defying, amazing martial art things. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. Because the ramifications of that one scene alone and what that means for the rest of the character and the story and the journey that she's about to go on completely nullifies it as far as I'm concerned. So I saw that and I turned it off. I was like, I've seen everything that I need to see, and I've got no intention of rewatching it. This is kind of a difficult one to jump into. I think what I have discovered actually before going live, I was doing a bit of reading about the film and the development of it, as I always do, is just how this film had a complete overhaul from what its original intention was going to be and the tone and the style that the movie was going to have. It was written very much as Mulan was still going to be, you know, constrained to the confines of society and what is expected of her and gender roles and everything like that. And she wanted to break free. She wanted to be free-spirited and live her own life on her terms. Very, very classic, you know, Disney tradition, really, in terms of the female characters. Ariel, I want more. Belle wanting more than the life that she has. So it's very tried and tested in that way. And it was more of like a romantic comedy. It was that Mulan, we open the movie and Mulan is betrothed to it's still the same name, I think. What's his name? Li Shang. So he's betrothed to him, but there's a lot of like the family dynamic and comedy, and she's saying like, oh, I haven't even seen him, and I'm in this arranged marriage. And you've got the father squabbling with the other father about like the dowry payment. He's like, I want 3 goats. And he's like, no, I want 4 goats and 1 pig. And I want 1 pig and 3 chickens. And they're arguing. And yeah, it would have been a very, very different film, I think. It was storyboarded, and you can watch all this on YouTube, and it's interesting to see. Yeah,
I think they missed the trick though, because her grandma should have been replaced with like the slow cousin that shows up going, "Oh, hello!" Like that should have been great. That would have been amazing. That would have made the movie.
Oh no! Oh no!
That would be great.
We're just pissed. Hey, if we had any Chinese fans up until this point.
Hey, to be fair, they did that. What was it? The fortune cook. That was Aristocats, wasn't it?
Aristocats. It was a different time. Okay, it was a different time.
Hey, it was a good time.
But yeah, it would have been very, very different. There was a scene where, on the day that she was meant to be married or betrothed, her father carves her. Oh God, I can't get my words out today. He carves her destiny out on a stone tablet. It almost sounds like 10 Commandments, like, I don't know, Prince of Egypt or something. Carves it out on a stone tablet and leaves it in the shrine of the ancestors. And Mulan goes there, and in anger, she breaks the stone tablet in a way of rebelling and saying, no, I want to choose my own future and my own destiny. And then it goes into the song Reflection. And I sent this video to you. Again, it's storyboarded. We'll talk about the music more later as well, but the song Reflection gave me Disney chills. When I watched it again, I think it's an absolutely gorgeous piece of music, and it got me there. I don't know if people get this. This is am I sort of unique in this fact about you'll hear something so epic or so beautiful a piece of music that the hairs on your arm will stand on end?
It's a short song, though, isn't it? Reflection.
Oh, sorry.
The short song, Reflection.
Well, that's what I was about to say. So I've seen this film loads and loads, but when I was rewatching it again the other night, I was struck where like this is kind of your main song of your film. It's the pop version at the end as well, Christina Aguilera in the credits. Yet it's so short, and this is sort of like the main theme, and it's so memorable. And it got me thinking, did they cut something out? Is there a longer version? It turns out there is a longer version of the song. There's actually a number of versions of the song that were recorded. Let me just get the name of the singer. I feel really bad that I'm forgetting her name. She's the singing voice of Jasmine. Oh, God. Let me find it on here because I'm actually really angry.
They should do one with Ariana Grande.
There we go. Sorry. She did Beauty and the Beast. She already ruined that song. I don't want to ruin it.
No, she don't ruin anything. She makes it better.
Lee Salonga. I'm butchering that pronunciation. But she recorded a number of ones. There's one in like an early version, which again is all storyboarded. You can find these on YouTube. It was really interesting to watch, but that is like your full 2.5 minute, 3 minute song with extra verses, extra choruses, a different build to it, slightly different instrumentation. And all of it stems from the original production, the original version of the story. So, of course, this was scrapped. This was changed. Things got cut out. I think she recorded that full version. Then she recorded a slightly shorter version of that longer version. And then there's the final version that you hear in the film. And then Christina Aguilera's got a few extra lyrics and verses that aren't in the previous one. So it's all a hodgepodge. But essentially, it starts the same. She's probably broken that stone tablet, and she wants to break away from life. And she gets on the horse and she rides off over the wilderness, sort of like letting her arms like woo, no hands kind of thing as she belts out this song Reflection. Do
you know one thing I've realised though? Well, I don't know if I'm right, but I don't think any other countries use the word hodgepodge aside from us.
I think you're probably right there. Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anyone's thinking I have no idea what that means. I don't know what it means. I don't think anyone knows what it means.
I'll start saying clusterfuck. I like saying clusterfuck. Yeah. That's one of my favorite. Yeah. So, but so I actually heard the full version of Reflection like before this live stream, and I was like, it's what a wonderful song it is. So yeah, I was struck by how short and concise the one in the actual final movie is. I think they kind of missed a trick there. But
yeah, the thing is, it's that whole less is more, you know.
Yeah, and it still has an impact, right? That song still captures everything it needs to, I think, in that moment, definitely. We may as well talk about the music now while we're on it, and then we can cycle back to the characters. There was another deleted song. Mushu was meant to get a song, and it's right at the moment where he gets introduced to Mulan, where he does like the shadow, the indestructible Mushu, that moment.
Oh, he should have done what's that Eddie Murphy song?
Party All the Time.
That's it. He should have done that. That would have been
the one song that he did. I know he did an album, but that's the one that.
Yeah, he should have just done that. Mushu should have just like broke into Party All the Time. It would have been amazing.
Let me. I
think it would have been the greatest moment of all of our lives.
I'm just trying to find the name of the song that got cut. Let me see. I did check this on YouTube. If you just stall for time, I'm going to find this.
Well, to be fair, the music is not the biggest thing for me in this, but that's just it's been overplayed in my life. And there's one song I actively do not like.
Oof, I'm not ready for this. Go on.
It's what's it fucking called? The one about what?
A Girl Worth Fighting For?
That's it. Actively dislike that song. It's just okay. When I say actively dislike, it sounds quite harsh, but I'm really not a fan of that at all. It's my least favorite in the movie, and it's very. This is what I mean. Like the soundtrack to this is good, and parts have impact. Like when you hear "I'll Make a Man Out of You," the reprise that you hear in the background and stuff, that has such good effects. Like Reflection is, I would say, one of the top Disney songs. I think it's, but the soundtrack's weird because like. On the flip side of that, it has songs I actively think, like it's a weird one, soundtrack wise. But I think it's the most effective soundtrack in the sense of it has some of the best, but also some of the worst for me. I personally think.
Woo! Oh, that's I would never go worse for this. I love every single song in this, the score as well. is phenomenal. It's
and
interesting.
As soon as I said that, I dropped my phone.
Yeah, it's karma.
The world went no.
Yeah, it's like you're done. Smack the phone out of your hand. Yeah, so I didn't know a lot about the making of the score behind this and a lot of the behind the scenes Disney politics, because there was a lot of politics behind this. So the composer for the actual film, who composed the songs for the film, is a composer called Matthew Walder, and the lyrics were done by David Zippel. But they actually wanted Stephen Schwartz, who had collaborated with Alan Menken on the last few Disney films. Now, around this time, he was signed on by DreamWorks to pen the songs for Prince of Egypt, which he eventually, of course, went on to do. So grateful for that, because Prince of Egypt is one of my favorite animated films. It's probably in my top 3 of all time, and the music to that is outstanding. So I'm very glad that he did choose to do that, and we got the wonderful music that we did for that film. And Jeffrey Katzenberg isn't the Disney chairman at this point. He'd left, I think, by 94 he'd left. So there was a brand new guy in. And he was having none of it. He didn't want Schwartz going to work for DreamWorks. He wanted him on Mulan. And he said, if you choose to go on to Prince of Egypt, we are going to remove your name from all the publicity for Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame, if you choose to go there, which is fucked to do something like that. Anyway, he went on to do Prince of Egypt. So then they looked for a new composer, and they got Matthew Walder. Now, already at this point, Schwartz had written 3 songs for Mulan. Now, this was a much earlier version of Mulan. The whole story was different. Everything was almost completely different. And the 3 songs that he wrote was a song called Written in Stone, Destiny, and China Doll. Now, I was only able to find Written in Stone, and that was also sung by Leah Salonga. You can find that on YouTube. I think she does it in a lot of her live shows when she performs. And it's a really beautiful song. It's a very different feel. Now, Schwartz is one of the composers. I don't know if he is the composer or one of the composers who did Wicked. And if you've heard the Wicked soundtrack, it's very similar to that. Very different kind of music from what we actually get in the final movie. I didn't dislike Written in Stone. I think it was like a beautiful song, but it would have been a very different tone for the film, I think. And as I say, this is like really, really early in production before they basically changed the direction of the character and the story, where it was going and the focus. So Matthew Walder comes on board, and he's the composer of the songs for the movie. I love all the songs. I think they all work. There isn't really one that's out of place to me. However, there could have been one. The one was deleted from the Walder songs that he produced for the film, and that was the Mushu song, which I found out now was called Keep 'Em Guessing. I've already said where it would have taken place in the movie.
I don't think that would have had the same tone with Mushu. I just don't like Mushu. Yeah. The thing is, with what's the one about the hero Hercules? I have no idea how that my brain went to that, the hero one. But yeah, Hercules, right? So like for instance, you've got like Phil. You know, Mushu is like the Phil of this. He's the little sidekick. He's the it's kind of like Genie, and like they all have like their songs. They sing. They do that. I don't think it would have worked with Mushu. I just really don't. I don't know. I just think because he's more like he is. I don't know how to explain, because the thing is, Genie's a comedy character, but Genie works with different voices and Robin Williams and this and that. Whereas Mushu is your weird sidekick that I don't know. I just couldn't imagine it.
Yeah. No, I think Genie's a really good comparison. Actually, it's your big celebrity name. In there for the character. He's the zany one. He's the comic relief character. He's the fast talking one, kind of like loud and in your face type of thing. But the song style is so strange. It's like a jazz song. It's like a piano, big band jazz kind of song. The tone of the music really wouldn't have fit the rest of the film.
Would it have
I don't think it would have fit Eddie Murphy's vocal style as well.
Would it have worked in Princess and the Frog?
It would have been more in that vein, I suppose. Yeah, sort of like jazz and blues and things like that. But when you listen, if you listen to it, it's very Friend Like Me vibes. That would have been like the Genie equivalent song if they'd have gone with that for Mushu. I just don't think it's needed. Like it would have ground the pace down of the film to a halt at that point. Like at that point when Mushu's introduced to Mulan, he's like, right, I'm here to help you. I'm one of your ancestors. you need to know what to do because you cannot act like a man and I'm going to guide you. Boom, get her in the camp and let's go with the story. That's all you need. You don't need
Get
like
her in the camp.
But you don't need like
Get
a,
her in
you
the
know, like a
van.
3-minute song and dance number about saying I'm Mushu and I'm a cool cat and I'm this, I'm that, because we, the audience, have been introduced to Mushu at that point. Granted, Mulan hasn't really, but you can get that from his personality and everything. Whereas Genie, you need that song is like our introduction to him as well, so we can comprehend what he can do, what his power levels are, and what his antics are and his mannerisms.
I was first introduced to Mushu before I was introduced to what Mushu Pork was, and I found out what Mushu Pork was, and I thought, oh, that's cool. They named it after the dragon in Mulan. Like,
cool.
That's the way I thought it was.
Mushu means food, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know, but I've heard of Mushu Pork, and I went, oh, they named it after the dragon, and then I looked, and I was like, I have a feeling the dragon came after. But like I heard of it the other way around, and I thought, oh, that's really cool.
Well, have you seen Rush Hour 2 with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker? He's like, I'm on vacation, man. I want some Mushu. He's like, Mushu, you hungry? He's like, no, I want some women, man.
do you know the funny thing? Have you seen you've seen the outtakes, haven't you? Where Jackie Chan goes, geez. Oh, Reed.
Oh, Jackie. Yeah, I love those films. You wouldn't be able to make those now. That's for damn sure.
Hey, they're great. They're amazing. They're all...
And there's some lines in this I was watching and going, Disney definitely wouldn't allow that now. But he's like, and because Miss Man wants to take a little drag show on the road. I'm like,
Disney won't allow anything. How long until a new Disney movie like doesn't ever gender anyone? Like when I say anyone, I mean it's a dude. It's always they. How long before that happens? I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for no one gets gendered in the movie. I'm waiting for it.
Oh, they did that in Star Wars Acolyte. The little beaver character got she said like, is he or they on our side? I'm like, it's happening. It's happening.
Wow.
Oh, do you remember the line in this as well? I was thinking like this definitely wouldn't get used in Disney now. It's where the ancestors towards the beginning of the film, right after Mulan's left, they're arguing with each other, and she's like, "Your great granddaughter turned out to be a cross dresser." I'm like, yeah, you absolutely wouldn't get that.
Do you know what's weird? This didn't have a warning sign at the beginning.
No, I was wondering if it would on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it didn't. I was like, oh, interesting. Usually you get warning signs for movies that you think, how the fuck does, like, it makes no sense. And in this, they say things like that and you think that would have a warning sign. But
for modern day Disney, it would.
It just shows that Disney have no idea what they're doing these days. Yeah. It just shows that all this transgender bollocks has no idea what it's talking about. It's just people being stupid. That's what it shows. Yeah. But here we are.
Brian Emery says, in the last video you mentioned Keith David in Hercules. He is also in a Disney Channel show called Amphibia. Oh, I didn't know that. I haven't heard of that show, actually. Amphibia, have you heard of that one?
I have not, but what's an amphibian?
It's water dwelling and land dwelling, I think.
Is it about
There's probably a lot more to it than that?
So like Aquaman?
Oh, I guess, yeah. I guess you could call him an amphibian.
I don't know. I'm just wondering if Amphibia is about someone like Aquaman. I don't know. I'm just wondering.
He's an amphibious mammal.
Yeah.
There you go. I don't know.
That's like saying what's another thing? Mammal, what's the other fucking things? Poultry. That's like saying you're a poultratic canine. I guess. Could be a thing.
What the fuck?
I don't know, a dog with wings that goes cuckoo. That would be a cool invention.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about our favorite songs in just a second, but I do want to talk about the actual composer of the score for this as well. Jerry Goldsmith, fantastic composer. The music, like the actual score of this film, is incredible. Like I was talking about, like Disney Chills earlier. That was more from the song Reflection, but just how epic those themes are when it kicks in and you get that like da 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 da, like in like the big epic battle moments. My favorite scene in the whole film is the battle scene in the snow in the mountains in the is it the Tung Shao Pass they call it, where you've got Shan Yu and you see his silhouette at the top, and then you just hear that slow rise of the army like yelling, and it echoes throughout the mountains. And that the whole music during that segment, I was watching the animation, I was thinking, like, could you imagine animating all that where you've got the avalanche and they get swept up in it and they go over the cliff? And I was thinking about, you've got to draw this frame by frame. It was amazing. But Jerry Goldsmith's score,
One of my dreams in life is to be on a snowy mountain and just to shout really loud and watch an avalanche, just see if it actually happens. Because it's one of those things. Is it a myth or is it not? Like, is that actually possible to shout and snow falls everywhere? I don't know.
It's probably possible. I'd say it's definitely possible.
I want to try it out.
Favorite song in this? What would you go for?
Reflection. 100%. Reflection. Easy peasy. Worst song is the woman one that I still always forget the name of because I don't like it.
A Girl Worth Fighting For.
That's it. Not a fan. Really not a fan of that song.
Now, my favorite song is I'll Make a Man Out of You. Like, there's just, when that kicked, like, I was watching it again the other day and it kicked in and I just went like, oh, this is all, like, this song's awesome. I love it. And as you said, like, when that theme, the Jerry Goldsmith score kicks in at the very end and you get the reprise of it, perfect moment. I love that you have the setup from earlier and the payoff in that moment too. So that's probably my favorite, but the one that has the most impact on me as a piece of music, just listening to it, and has the biggest emotional reaction out of me, is Reflection. And I know that I've always liked that song and that melody, but it wasn't until I rewatched it the other night where, as I said, like, I had like goosebumps, hairs on my arms just standing on end, and I listened to the full version that I linked to you just before we went live, and it had exactly the same effect.
The Jackie Chan version.
He's not the singing voice from Mulan, you dick. He's the singing voice for Li Shang.
That's what I'm on about. But oh, sorry, yeah, because you went. Sorry, I was thinking of Make a Man Out of You.
No, but that's great. Yeah, no, we should. That ties it into Rush Hour, doesn't it? So yeah, Jackie Chan is the singing voice of Li Shang in the Chinese version of the film, which is great.
Yeah, which I didn't realize until very recently. I didn't know this. I thought it was amazing, but we got Donny Osmond.
We did get Donny Osmond, so he actually wanted to play Hercules. He auditioned for that, and he auditioned for this again. And you know, he's only the singing voice, but apparently, you know, he did his homework. He listened to a lot of BD Wong's voice and like his cadence to his speech, and he tried to match his vocals.
He's done very, very well in that.
It is. No, yeah, it's really convincing.
Like, it could pass as literally him.
Yeah.
But a fun fact is the first gig I ever went to was Donny Osmond.
Really?
Well, yeah, it was the Osmonds. He was one of the first people I ever saw live, which is amazing. And on the flip side of that, the first ever vinyl record I bought was Van Halen 1.
So that's how we're tying it in. That's how we're tying it. Oh, that's cool. You sent me a picture earlier too, where David Lee Roth and Donny Osmond are in the same photo as each other, which is
I think now that we're getting closer and closer to present day, there's a lot more tie-ins that will happen, and there'll be actual things like that where like Donny Osmond met David Lee Roth, and like I say, I saw Donny Osmond in concert like fucking. Don't know how long ago was it now? Fuck me. It was a good 15 years. Well, actually, how old was I 15 years ago? How old am I? Hold on.
13-ish.
How old am I?
13.
It's more than that. It must have been almost 17 years ago. It was a while ago. Anyway.
Do you remember it? Yeah. Do you remember the gig?
Yeah, I remember it. It was the first actual gig I went to. And yeah, they opened with Crazy Horses, and that was amazing. Like, I'd never listened to them before. I went with my mum. Like, I'd never listened to them before. And I was like, oh yeah, come on. I was like, all right, cool. Because like I said, it was about 17 years ago. Like, I was like a kid. I must have been like 9 or something. Oh shit, that was 20 years ago. Anyway, but the point is, like, I was quite young, and yeah, they opened Crazy Horses. I remember just sat there, just being like, that's fucking cool. Like, with the sounds and the guitars, and it was heavy, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I went out and bought Van Halen 1, and I was like, this is incredible. And life never got worse. I mean, it got worse, but we won't go into that. But,
yeah.
Life never got better even. Hang on.
I see. You fucked up. You fucked up there. Yeah.
Life never got better than. There you go. That's the one.
So that's it for music. I know that's sort of like a big section that we've opened with, but it's definitely worth talking about for this one. When I went to that Disney orchestra thing, that Disney Sound of Magic concert from, was it like a month ago or so? They didn't play anything from Mulan, and I thought it was such a missed opportunity because it's to me at least, like, the soundtrack to this is one of Disney's best, just across the board. That goes for the score and the last thing I'll mention on the music, like the score. one of my favorite bits is it's called sequence 6, but it's the bit where she cuts her hair and she gets the armor on and leaves. That like synth, like you know, that like pumping kind of, and then you got like the synth Chinese music playing over the top of it. That piece of music is amazing, and I love that so much. And that scene as well was one of the, I think it was like the first one, I don't know if it was the first one to be fully animated, but it was the first one to be storyboarded in sequence, because I think originally they were going to have a lot of dialogue over the top of it, or no, they were going to have a song, like an actual singing song as she's getting ready and leaves. Then that was going to turn into like a voiceover, like a narration. And then eventually they just went with like a minimalistic approach to it and just cut out all the dialogue and just let the visuals speak for themselves, which is absolutely the right decision for that scene. We get everything we need to from the visuals. And I remember that scene was pivotal in the original teaser trailer for the song, for the film. Sorry, like I remember seeing that in cinema so vividly. It was the pan down from the stone dragon chair, and then she sat in the rain, kind of slumped over with like the long hair over her face, and she looks up. Like that scene from that sequence. And have you ever seen a film called Dragonheart, the Sean Connery dragon?
I've seen Red Dragon. That's very different.
No, that's the Silence of the Lambs prequel. No, Dragonheart, it's like a sword and sorcery fantasy movie. It's Sean Connery does the voice of Draco the dragon, and he shares his heart with like the evil king. And you ever seen this? This came out in the 90s, Dragonheart.
I don't think I've seen it. I know the name. Okay. No.
But the person who composed the music for Dragonheart, Randy Edelman, he was originally going to compose this movie too. So far as in fact that they actually used the song from Dragonheart, the main theme from Dragonheart, in the teaser trailer for Mulan when it came out. But I think that piece of music was used in so many fucking trailers around the 90s. It's a beautiful piece of music, but you'd recognize it if you heard that music. Definitely, I think.
I probably would. Like, I recognize the name, but I've not. Yeah.
Let's talk characters then. I think we'll move away from the music and we'll talk about the characters now a little bit. Do you want to should we kickstart with Mulan? I think she's worth. Surprisingly, in a review called Mulan, it's important that we talk about the character of Mulan because she's incredible.
Yeah, she is. She's all right. You know, she's cool. I like Mulan. She's a good little Disney princess. Like I could watch her for a long time. She's great.
Yeah. She's again similar to Meg and Esmeralda. She's one of those Disney characters where she's not technically a princess, but she kind of fits into that main. Like if I saw a roster of all the Disney official princesses, I'd kind of be like, "Oh, where's Mulan?" I know she isn't a princess in the context.
Yeah, but she's one of the big ones, isn't she? She's one of the big women. You know, kind of like Ursula, big women. Anyway, but you know, she's one of the the big female characters, and I think she's great because she's one of those like Disney can write strong female characters, and they don't need to be fucking woke and over the top and stupid shit. But like she's done very, very well, and her story is great. And the one scene I really like, which I think. It confused me as a kid, I remember. But like, it's one of those, how like, okay, so when you watch like a general TV show and they've got like, people like laying in bed talking and then the girl's always got a top on, that sort of stuff, right? Obviously that's because, like if it was like real life, like, that's not going to happen, but it's obviously done because they can't show tits on TV, all that sort of shit. It's the same with this. So when like Lee walks in and she's got obviously the bandages over it, and you can see that, she's a female. Whereas if this wasn't a kids' movie, she'd just be topless, wouldn't she? But it's true though, isn't it? Because that's how we would find out. Because as a kid, it always confused me. I was like, "What?" You know what I mean? But again, this is another the way the movie doesn't hold your hand. It's kind of like just you get it. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be overly explained. But yeah, I think she's a really good character. I think she's strong, and I think there's one scene in particular. She looks like Nani. Like one. Where is it? It's like where she's like getting dressed, where they doll her up and everything, and she's just before that getting dressed, and she moves like the way she looks, because realistically, she's not even one of the cliche looking Disney princesses where she's like stick thin or anything like that. She's more realistic in a lot of ways, and she's the first like Asian one as well. So I reckon that's why she's more realistic, because they had to go with an Asian look, they had to do this, they had to do that. But yeah, she's written very well, and if she was written in today's standards, they'd probably fuck it up.
Yeah, well, case in point, they did in was it 2019, 2020, whenever that live action version came out. Mulan is easily one of my favorite like female characters, probably in film history. I'm going to go that far. I will say that probably her, the bride, and like Sarah Connor and Ripley from Aliens, they often get tossed in the list as well. But yeah, the writing is outstanding, and what I like about it, and this is what this is what Disney as a company now, and not even just Disney, a lot of companies, but Disney chief among them, and a lot of screenwriters need to know that there is strength in femininity, and there's a strength, like the actual strength and morals to Mulan's character. Mulan isn't a cool, amazing character because she's badass and she can use a sword, and that's nice to have, but it's the actual qualities of her personality and her character and how selfless she is in her actions. And there is frailty to her, and there is weakness, and we get to see those moments of weakness where she becomes emotional, and she's thrown into a situation where she's like, I don't know how to handle this, I'm making this up as I go along, kind of thing.
That's basically why J.K. Rowling got cancelled, isn't it? Because she basically said there's what does she say, that basically only women get periods or something? There's strength in being a woman, that only women have, and blah 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 blah, and the whole trans community went bollocks because they're idiots. Yeah. But it's the same sort of thing. Like there is, and by today's standards, it's weird. It's like they're trying to take that away, which, when you think about it, in itself is very sexist.
Yeah. This is like the whole thing with Mulan. I always compare Mulan to the character of Eowyn from The Lord of the Rings, in how there's a very defined gender structure to the world. War, as they say in the Lord of the Rings movies, war is the province of men. Eowyn, it's the men that do battle, it's the women that attend to the men, care for the children, women and children first, kind of thing.
Van Halen.
What?
Van Halen, their third album.
What was their third album? You know this.
Women and Children First.
Oh, was it actually? Nice. Yeah. There we go.
You did one.
And it's, yeah, what really annoyed me about the live action version was the choice of the villain as well. Like, I think the equivalent of Shan Yu is in the movie, but he's not the main villain. He hangs around with like this witch priestess lady who hangs around with him, and she's an amazing fighter, and she fights she fights with Mulan, and I think by the end of it she's like, you are worthy, like, look what we've had to do to achieve this. And I'm like, that really takes away the quality of Mulan being unique, that no one has done this, no one would even dream of doing this. And they say the penalty for this is death. She puts herself in front of death's door almost, and she just does it because of the love of her father. And that was the original conceit of the film, was that she was very, I won't say selfish, because, she had a life where it was, you will marry this person, you will do this, you will go here, you will dress like this. And she wanted to break away from that. Very tried and tested Disney formula, as I said. But her reason for breaking away from that would have been all for herself. But I like how they changed it. And I think this matches the original mythology and the legend of Hua Mulan, is that she does it for the love of her father. And that was an aspect they wanted to bring into the film, which of course they did. And I love that fact. It just makes her a really honorable character. And there was another moment which I've never even paid attention to all that much before, but I sort of caught this on my recent viewing of it. It's right at the end of towards the tail end of I'll Make a Man Out of You, at the end of the montage, where she's just failed so many times. And he sings, you're unsuited for the rage of war, so pack up, go home, you're through. And he brings the horse to her, and he throws her the reins, and he's like, get the fuck out of here, because you're not war material, basically. So it's not even like she's a deserter. She is so bad that he says, I'm letting you go. And she has the option to go back. She wouldn't have to fight for China at that point. She'd go back to her father, and everything's hunky-dory, and no one would bat an eyelid, because he's actively letting her go. And as she's walking away, that's when she looks at the top of the pole with the arrow in it. And she makes that conscious decision right there to stay. She could have been well out of harm's way. She could have let all the other soldiers go to war. She could have gone back home to her father, and everything wouldn't have changed. But she stays, and she tries to prove it to herself that she can do it. It's one of my favorite moments. And I think that's punctuated later in the film, where she's abandoned in the mountain pass and she's looking into the helmet, and the quote is, "Maybe I didn't go for my father. Maybe what I really wanted was to prove I could do things right. So when I looked in the mirror, I'd see someone worthwhile." And again, you could kind of say, well, is that like the selfish reasons again kicking in? I think she did do it for the love of her father. Obviously, when she like sees him trying to fight with a sword and he's lame and he falls over and he stumbles, she does do it for the love of her father. But I think there definitely is. She also wants to see if she can do it just to prove it to herself as well. I think those two qualities combined there are really admirable.
Yeah, she has a lot of she's one of the better written characters, I think, in like throughout Disney. You know what I mean? It's one of those of they didn't try.
Yeah.
It happened, and that's just one of the better things. When you don't try, you do good.
Mm-hmm.
When you try too hard, it's like going for a shit. If you try too hard, it hurts. So it's the same thing, Disney. That's what all your new movies are like.
Yeah, they are shit now. Yeah, no, you're right.
Shit, basically, yeah.
What do you think to the sort of romantic aspect of her and Li Shang in the movie?
I mean, do you know what? It's one thing I think I was going to say think about every time I watch it. Not every time I watch it, but it's one thing that I thought about definitely this time again, and I thought about it a couple of times. It makes for a good movie, but it's not like it's one of those things. Like I say, it's just kind of there because it makes for a good movie, and I get it, and I don't dislike it, but it's very kind of like a trope you need, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be upset. But it's kind of like, let's say, I don't know. Let's have an example. I don't know. I'm trying to think. What's another movie in the world? Oh my god, shit! I don't know. What's a movie with like a villain? Crap.
every movie ever.
I know, I can't think. Right, so Harry Potter, not Disney movie, but just something like that. For example, let's just say at the end there's a battle and then Voldemort kills Harry and then he just kills everyone. Ha, awesome. Right? Now, point is, it's not a satisfactory ending. Like, there's a lot of people that would be like, that's not what we, do you know what I mean? Like the hero wins sort of thing.
Mm.
You know, it would still be a great movie series and a great book series and all that, but like, you know, the ending isn't satisfactory. It's kind of like this, like it's needed for that satisfactory sort of ending, but it's just a trope for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't hate it. It's just one of those things that it's handled well with the way it's done. It's just, it didn't have to end like that. Like, if she didn't end up with him, I wouldn't be sad. Like, I don't think it's one of those things where they should have. It could have ended in different ways. But it was done well for what it was. Does that make sense? It's a very long-winded way to say that, but
it feels kind of thrown in. I don't think it needed to necessarily be like a blossoming love kind of story, because there are only like a handful of scenes that I can think of that draw reference to it. There's the bit where Mushu's like, I saw that. You like him, don't you?
Yeah.
And she kind of watches him walk away. That's really it. And then I think it's just like a more of a mutual respect throughout a lot of the film. And then it's at the very end where he just shows up and he's like, oh, you don't meet a girl like that every dynasty. And then he goes back to her place at the end. But there's no like kiss that, like, I think does she hug him? I don't even think you get that.
You don't usually meet a girl like that. Imagine going home to your parents and be like, so how'd you meet her? Well, she pretended to be a dude, actually. Funny story. Like, that doesn't happen often, does it? But yeah, it's like you say, it is thrown in, and it's handled well. Because sometimes, like, you do get movies that have forced endings, or like books or story or anything, or they've got things that you go, that feels forced. I think it was handled well enough that it didn't feel forced, but it's, you know, it was kind of like, you know what, it wasn't needed. Could have done without it. It would have still been cool with me, but I think it makes for a satisfactory end where you just, it's something you kind of want to see. And that's one thing I think Frozen do well, where they don't have Elsa fall in love with, but we'll come on to that when we come on to it, because I know we have different opinions on it, but I think that's one thing again for that, which is good, which I think was quite different for Disney, but we'll come on to that in a few weeks.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of this, there's no sort of like big Disney kiss. I don't even think they hug at the very. She gives the Emperor a bigger hug than what she does Li Shang, I think, at the very end, and he just kind of like awkwardly rocks up, and then she
You
just
know
says,
what?
"Oh, do you want to stay for dinner?" It feels kind of like thrown together at the end.
I
But I
feel
get what
like,
you're saying, that you need it for that beat of the ending. Like
yeah,
everything's good, happy endings.
I feel like there are a couple that on the ride home, they're like, right, we've got something to talk about. You know, I did it for the public display, cool, but not really for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll be like, why? And he'll be like, well, I dressed up as a dude. Make your, like, put two and two together. That's what I think that was the conversation they were having.
Let's see what other characters we've got in this. I guess we could talk about Mushu. So apparently the actors they were originally going to go for the voice of this was Joe Pesci. I can't imagine that voice coming out of Mushu. Richard Dreyfuss.
You think I'm funny like a clown? That would have worked. That would have been amazing.
Richard Dreyfuss and Michael Eisner, but I think they struck gold with Eddie Murphy and him agreeing to do it.
No, I didn't know that about Joe Pesci. Now you've said that, I just imagine Mushu being there going, "I amuse you." Like, I can just imagine it. I think that would be amazing. That would work so well.
Please tell me exactly how I'm fucking funny. Like
that would have been great. Do you know what? I would love an edit with Joe Pesci's voice. I would love that. That's actually amazing. That's all I'm going to see now. Every time I see Mushu, be like, do you know what could have been?
I could see a Joe Pesci more for like a Phil character from Hercules.
Yeah, but the thing is, Mushu has that. The reason Mushu has that is because Phil, like, obviously, when they talk about like a big trainer, like this whole like, and you expect Phil to be, but he's a little fucking goat creature thing, and it's like that with Mushu, because with the shadow, with the whole big dragon, then he's suddenly his little thing. Yeah. So they both have very similar sort of. They're very similar characters in a lot of ways. But yeah, Mushu is great. He is obviously he's the comic relief character. He's your Jar Jar Binks. That's a comparison no one would like me saying, but you know what I mean. He's your comic relief character.
Yeah.
He's the little fun sidekick. But you know what? It's really weird because even without him, I think the movie could have been just as good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and I know when they first announced the live action version, and they said it's not going to have any of the songs in, it's not going to have any of the music, and a lot of people kind of up in arms about that. And I thought, well, no, hang on, because it's based on the legend. Like, you could have like a really good, serious war movie, and it would be weird if in the live action version they just started bursting out into song. Because I think, yeah, if you're doing something like Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, maybe, or they did do Cinderella. I don't know if the songs were in that. Maybe they weren't. I'm not sure. But when you've got something classical like that, I think the songs work for it. But Mulan, I'm like, no, you could, like, if they did a live action, God forbid, if they did a live action version of Hunchback of Notre Dame, I would be fine if they went, we're not going to do songs in it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's that kind of subject matter, that kind of material. And then they announced that Mushu wasn't going to be in it. And everyone was like, oh, I'm done. I'm not watching it. And I was like, well, no, hang on. This could still work, and you could still have like a really good, compelling story. Of course, they fucked it up. But when it was in the initial planning stages of it and the teaser trailer came out, I was on board for it. I thought it looked great. And then the movie happened. I think they might replace Mushu with a phoenix, actually, in that movie. And I haven't read like the original story. I haven't read anything about it, but I think I heard somewhere that there is a phoenix in that original version, or one of the tales of the mythology. So I don't know. Let's talk about the villain, Shan Yu, who is the chieftain of the Huns.
He's a bit oogie boogie like, isn't he? In the sense of he's not your. I mean, he's the villain, but he's not your. Fucking Jafar or Hades, where they're there from the beginning and they're a big presence person, where the villain is the Huns and then he's there. It's that kind of, he's got more screen time than Oogie Boogie. Oogie Boogie's just kind of like there, he does a song, he dances, and then he fucks off, and that's it. No one cares because it's a shit movie. Anyway, the point is, like, he is that kind of villain. You know what I mean? He is a villain, and he works as a villain, and he's calm, and he's cold, and he doesn't say much, like, in terms of like actual lines. It's that kind of he goes more on like he doesn't have to say much, but he can just look scary.
Yeah,
and he
it's Darth
works.
Maul, basically.
Yeah, he is, and he works as a less is more character. So I do like the villain. He's just nothing that stands out. Like when you think big villains, you think Hades, you think Jafar, you think this, and he's just there, and he's cool. And I think his dagger is wicked, and he's got the whole fucking Raven, and he's great. He's great for what he does. He just doesn't do a lot because I think the movie does well in the sense of it's the Hunt army. That's the villain, and they've just got a leader. And it's great. They don't need a big fucking, because at the end of the day, they could have gone the other way about it and had some sort of like, oh, now, because like obviously they've got the Guardian, they've got Mushu. They could have been like, oh, now they've got a mystical thing, and they could have done that, and it just would have been shit. You know what I mean? It would have just been the same sort of like, cool, we got the love story, we got the big monster, but they didn't. They actually did, really well with it.
Yeah, I actually didn't know who voiced this character. He reminded me. Have you ever seen The Crow or Highlander?
Yeah.
Not Highlander. Sorry, I think he's in Willow. But if you've seen The Crow, the main bad guy with like the long, straight and black hair, he's got like the really deep, raspy voice.
Wasn't the main bad guy the one that shot what's his name and destroyed the legacy? Wasn't he the main bad guy?
No, he was just like one of the.
Yeah, I know, but technically you shot him and killed him, so he's
he was.
What was his name again?
What? Oh, the actor who played the Crow, Brandon Lee.
No, the guy that shot him.
Oh, I can't remember. He plays Fun Boy in the movie.
Well, he shot him and he killed him, so he's the villain.
But I didn't know who did the voice of Shan Yu in this, and I checked, and it's an actor called Miguel Ferrer, and he plays Bob Morton in RoboCop, which is one of my favorite movies from the 80s. So that was cool. I didn't know that. I only found out that fairly recently before we went live. I think Shan Yu, pretty much everything you said. He's a functional villain. He fits that villain role, and he just sticks to that. You're not going to get like a Judge Claude Frollo complexity level writing here or anything like that. And even Hades, there's not a lot to say about Hades in the previous film, but he's got personality. James Woods, that fast talking lawyer kind of almost like businessman yuppie kind of thing. Like that was great for the character, and that's memorable. You remember his personality. With Shan Yu, honestly, if you're having like a conversation about like Disney with someone, you go like, oh, what do you think of Shan Yu? They'll be like, who? I guarantee they'd be like that. Oh, which one was that? It was the villain in Mulan. Oh, yeah, that guy.
He has a really cool boss battle in Kingdom Hearts, though.
Yes, we haven't talked about the Kingdom Hearts world yet. When they go to the camp, like just the encampment, I was just and I've only played Kingdom Hearts 2 twice, but I distinctly remember that you have to run around like all the tents, don't you? And everything. Yeah, I don't remember his boss battle though. I don't remember his boss battle all that much.
Yeah, when you're at the palace gates. And I remember that being a really good boss battle, and it was great. I got a very Kingdom Hearts vibes from this. Not just obviously Kingdom Hearts been in like a lot of these have been in Kingdom Hearts games, but I don't know. Maybe it's because the style just I don't know why. I just feel like it's all kept the same, and they did really well with it. I got very Kingdom Hearts vibes from the Emperor's Palace and everything like that. I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, no, the boss battle was really cool. I remember it being colourful, and I remember like. It just being a really, really cool thing. But like you say, he's a functional villain. He's there. He does his thing, and I'm glad they included him in that rather than not and just forgot about him, because he does work and he is good.
Yeah, I think there is a time and a place for villains like this. I mentioned Darth Maul already, kind of the scary-looking assassin kind of character who doesn't say much, very minimalistic, but he's imposing and he fits that role very well. If I'm going with like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something, you've got the character of Lurtz, who's like the big Uruk-hai chieftain in that first movie that kills Boromir, and he has like a handful of lines. I think he just says like Saruman and find the halfling, and that's it. That's his dialogue the entire movie. But he is scary and he's terrifying and he's got a great look to him. And like when he shows up, you're like, oh fuck, like he should. So I think there is a time and a place for that. I love well-written villains. Don't get me wrong. Like I love ones that have got like a lot of that are very intelligent, complexity to the writing, whether it's like a mirror image of the protagonist, sort of like the Joker to Batman kind of thing. I always love dynamics like that. But sometimes you just want like a really big, scary looking motherfucker who shows up and is going to just like wreck some shit. Like, and that's exactly, and that's what Shan Yu is. There's actually like I think it would have been a really kind of cool deleted scene actually with Shan Yu, and it's right after they've sacked the camp, you know, where Li Shang, sorry, finds the bodies. I do love that juxtaposition, by the way, at the end of A Girl Worth Fighting For, and they just cut it off mid-track, and they just see all the desolation in front of them. It does strike me as weird though, because they were approaching that desolation for like a good few miles. So how didn't they see? They only see it when the song ends. You know what I mean? It's just like you were walking towards this for a while. But there was a deleted scene, which is right after the Huns have sacked that city, and they're kind of like pillaging and plundering, and they're like taking all the valuables and stuff. And Shan Yu, we're going to go with like a different aspect to him and the Falcon. They were going to almost like the Crow. I just saw Carl's comment. I'll get to that in a second. They were going to have like a shared sight, like Shan Yu could see through the eyes of the Falcon when it's flying, like some magical bullshit.
Assassin's Creed.
Yes, yeah, similar to that. And one of the, I don't know if it's one of his men or one of the people from the village, saved like a little canary from a cage that the villagers have had, and he like keeps it as a pet. And the Falcon sees this henchman or this guy taking the Falcon and sort of pocketing it. And Shan Yu shows up out of the tent or rocks up from wherever he's been at, and he says like, "Did you leave anyone alive?" And all of his men are like, no, we didn't. And he went, "Oh yeah, well what's this then?" And he pulls out the little canary, and then he goes on some kind of speech, and he says like and then I think he stabs the guy and like wipes the sword, and he says like, "This is going to be the fate of the Emperor of China." And he says, "Let me demonstrate." And he says, this is what innocence looks like, or something like this. And he lets the little canary go, and then the Falcon swoops off and like catches it like a bird of prey in the air and kills the bird. It would have been really fucking dark, but I think that scene, they've replaced it with the messenger scene. And it was like, "How many people does it take to deliver a message? One." And it cuts to black. I think that scene replaced where that one would have been, but it was a cool scene.
When you talked about a canary, all I could picture was Wolf of Wall Street, where Donnie picks up the fish and eats it. That's all I can. I don't know why, but I pictured like, the big character picking up this little thing and just like showing everyone, like making an example of something. That's what I just pictured in my head.
Carl has probably the best description I've ever seen for the Crow. Says the Crow is basically RoboCop for goths. Yeah, oh my god, yeah, it actually is.
Yeah,
it's the same fucking movie. I've actually never even considered that, but yeah, so someone is killed, brought back to life to kill the gang that, yeah, shit. There you go. It stands to reason why I love both of those movies then, doesn't it? So RoboCop's one of my favorites from the 80s, and that's one of my favorite from the 90s. Any other characters that you mention?
What's the Care Bear character called?
Oh, you're talking about like the main three that are in the
camp, the big guy, the big Care Bear one.
Yeah, so
you've got his eyes closed the whole time.
And so you're talking about Chien-Po. He's the fat guy.
Yeah, loads of things have a character like him, like Recess with Mikey and the big fat guy that's like the gentle soul, but he's the big one.
Yeah,
or he's very like Kronk. You know what I mean? Like he's silly. He you know what I mean? He's the slow cousin. He is that hero. Like he is that guy. But like, you know what I mean? Like the Kronk, like the kind of, because realistically, like Kronk's not like a villain, is he? But
no.
But it's one of them of what others do it? It's like Rocky and Muggsy. When you got like Muggsy, like the big one who's like the dumb one, and it's that. And I love characters like that because I know it's quite cliche now in the sense of like the big guy, or he's the Care Bear of the lot. But I love characters like that because it goes well with the whole. What's the little guy called again?
What, the thin guy or the little stocky guy?
No, the little one. The thin one. Fuck him. He doesn't mean anything. He's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the voice, yeah.
Yeah, the little one with the weird voice, and like, I think the dynamic of having those two and everything. The thin one, he's your Pleakley, but Pleakley's cool, and this one isn't. He's just kind of like, can you go away? But he's your third wheel. He's like, no, we want more of these two.
I think the three of them work really well together. Like visually, you've got like the really slim, slender one, you've got the giant, big, fat one, and then you've got like stocky, rough and ready kind of one. Yao's probably my favorite. The guy, he's got such a distinctive voice. You see Mrs. Doubtfire, it's Robin Williams' brother in that film who does all the makeup for him. And he's like, "Can you make me a woman?" "Oh, honey, I'm so happy." And he's got like that raspy voice still. But I think the three of them work off each other so well in this film, and they're just really fun supporting characters.
Yeah.
How they all one of my favorite bits in the film is where they reprise the training from earlier, where they all take they're dressed as concubines and they take the sashes off and climb up the pillar using it. I love that moment. Couple of adult jokes in there I definitely wouldn't have got as a kid. It's where Mulan's bathing in the river and all the guys show up and Mushu's like, "There's a couple of things I'm sure they're bound to notice." Like, I wouldn't have got that as a kid. I do now.
Yeah. Or like I think when it's like when she's like, I never want to see a naked man again. I would have loved it if there was just some sort of like reference to that when she meets like Lee again. Instead of them getting together, if there was some sort of reference to that, that would have been cool.
Some other voice actors I didn't know were in this film. Miriam Margolyes, Professor Sprout from Harry Potter, does the voice of the matchmaker.
Do you know what I love about Miriam Margolyes? The fact that she's one of those people that has no filter. Have you ever watched interviews with her? She's great, and she says things that you know she's saying because she knows it's going to get a rise out of people, and that's what I think is great. I'm like, it's great because you're a little old lady, you know you can get away with it, and that's what's amazing, and that's what I love about her.
Yeah. Other voice actors in there, you got James Hong as Chi-Fu, who's like the little sniveling, weaselly assistant to the Emperor. George Takei as the ancestor. Great stone dragon, have you awakened?
George Takei? I didn't.
Oh my,
I didn't realize that.
Him. Yep. And then Pat Morita, goddamn Mr. Miyagi himself as the Emperor. Love that.
Do you know what though? Do you know what I love about George Takei? I love how calm and collected he just always is. And he is just... Have you ever seen him angry?
No, I don't think so.
Like, yeah, I haven't seen him angry, but I've seen things where you can tell he's not happy with that. And he just looks like that kind of, you know, the uncle at like that you might see at a wedding where like you've done something as a little kid to piss him off and you can kind of see it in his face, but he's never going to get angry. Like I like that about George. I think he's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's gay as well. He's a nice little, you know, little Asian gay man. He's great.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
One of my favorite moments in this film, and this kind of sort of like the background, really. It's the Lord of the Rings moment. It's the "you bow to no one" moment, and it's where everyone, the Emperor himself, and all of her friends, you know, her soldier, what do you call it? Fellows in arms, brothers in arms. What am I talking about? But then the whole crowd bows to Mulan, and that music swells there. Jerry Goldsmith's score, one of my favorite moments. I'm a sucker for moments like that. Lord of the Rings has the best one. You bow to no one. Never a dry eye every single time I watch that moment. And it's just, yeah, when that character gets that recognition. And she gets like the really cool things to take home with her as well. She gets like the medallion of the Emperor, doesn't she? And the sword of Shan Yu. That's a badass looking sword. I don't know how well that sword would do because it's kind of like notched and looks like it would break really easily. But
yeah, but it's great though. It just looks cool, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I guess if you were going with like Disney tie-ins with this thing, we kind of already mentioned it, but years ago when they did Aladdin, they fly to what very much looks like the same Chinese temple when him and Jasmine are sat on top of it. So I always like to think in my head canon it's the same.
Chinese temples all look the same, don't they?
Well, this is the is it the forbidden? What's it called? Forbidden something, isn't it? This one, this temple, the Forbidden City.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the center of Imperial City in Beijing, China.
It's like Aztec temples, though. They all look the same. It's that kind of... So, I guess, but... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we've talked about a lot of the stuff already. We've talked about the animation. They developed some new softwares for this as well. For the big crowd scenes, they had a software called Attila, where they could have thousands of uniquely generated characters. Probably in that scene where you see them charging down the snow in the big like cavalry charge, and a lot of the crowd shots in the background of the stream.
I have a question I've just thought of. So, what are those shapes called? The big ones, and it's like pyramids. What shape is a pyramid? Is that a pyramid? Is that the shape?
Pyramid.
Right. So an Aztec pyramid, where
Yeah.
it's got the tip cut off. What shape is that? Because technically, it's got more sides.
Is it 6 sides to that? Is it 6 sides to it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
So that would be like hex something.
A hexamid.
Sided shape. Well, that's
but it's not though, is it?
Well, it just says hexagon, but that's just like the 2D shape.
In Aztec temples, when you go to the top, and you got like they've cut off the tip just to be different. Like they just went, they cut off. You know how it's like a square, and you can like basically stand on the top. Did they used to have like you stand on it, and it used to be like a lift that goes down into the temple?
I'm not sure.
Or is that just my brain?
They might have like winch and pulleys, maybe. I don't know. But
I don't know. I just always thought like you go onto the top of it and it's like a lift that goes into it, and then in the temple is all their like Aztec stuff.
I'm not sure. All their Aztec stuff is just
all the Aztec life. You go in there and that's where they are now.
So I read this on the Wikipedia page about this, and the scene where they all bow to Mulan at the end, apparently it says during the scene in which the citizens of China are bowing to Mulan, the crowd is a panoramic film of real people bowing. It was edited into the animated foreground of the scene. So I don't know. I thought, does that stick out as real people? I thought it would be all animated. I'm not sure.
No, it sticks out as when you see like the crowds and they have the little bouncy ball heads, kind of like that. They all look kind of same. It's
the last thing I was going to talk about was the intro to the film, and that was interesting, sort of like the production ideas of what they wanted to do, and they had 1,000,001 ideas really, and a lot of them were animated out. They just didn't know how to start the story, where to go from. So one of the earliest things that they animated, the original prologue, was this was more from the production of where it was Mulan wanting to break away from this life and be free spirited and everything. And it starts with a daydream, and she's like, "Oh, I'm Mulan. I'm one of the finest warriors in the world. Mythical creatures are my best friends, and every man in the kingdom wants to ask for my hand in marriage, and I can do all these cool things." And she says, "I even beat the evil Shan Yu," and she sat on top of the Great Wall of China, and Shan Yu is like this giant fucking Dark Souls boss that shows up like Attack on Titan, smashes through the Great Wall. He's decked in like almost samurai kind of gear, like sort of like Chinese armor type thing. That's Japanese, isn't it? Oh, I'm going to land myself in a lot of hot water there.
It's kind of like how I see the Huns and the Mongols as very similar.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I always thought Japan and China were the same when I was a kid. But then South Park taught me different. And it's like Japan and China very different. I always was like,
But yeah, he's this big like hulking thing. So it's neat to see that was probably just going to be like a throwaway intro to the movie because it's a daydream in Mulan's head. But they used the same name from that like demon character from that, and then that name ended up being the main villain name throughout the rest of the film. And anyway, her mom says like, "Come on, Mulan, you've got to get ready for your big day and your proposal," and then it would go into the rest of the film from there. Then they were really enamored by the idea of Chinese shadow puppets. I don't know if they're lit with a lantern or something similar to Hunchback of Notre Dame, I guess, where you've got like the marionette hand puppet thing of. Oh no, they do shadow puppets in that, don't they? At the beginning of Hunchback of Notre Dame, where you see like a little Frollo chasing Quasi up to the bell tower. It would have been similar to that. They really like that art style. They actually animated it in full color. And it was going to be a history of the Great Wall itself and why it was built, and that it was built to fend back and repel a lot of enemy attacks. And every single dynasty, every single emperor would hand that task off to the next emperor, and slowly but surely this massive wall. And they said that we give this history lesson on the wall before it then goes into well, it started on the Great Wall, like the main film, you know, the final product does. It starts at the Great Wall, but it gives you all this preamble and prologue about the history of it, and the directors were just like, we don't really need this. It's a lot of exposition for something. Like, let's just get to what's the story we're telling. It's the attack of the Huns, right? Let's open the movie with the Huns. But you mentioned about like the 3D look to the animation, and I mean, I've seen this film countless times too. I had a similar effect, so maybe they have gone in all like, maybe just because it's been touched up a little bit for the DVD, probably even more for the 4K. It's like that what's it, multi-plane camera effect, you know, like in the olden days with Bambi, where it would track through the forest and you'd have like an element of the forest in the foreground, then another picture laid behind it, and the two would track at like a slightly different speed to give that sense of depth. I was getting that because I looked at a 2D image of the Great Wall, and then as the camera pans back, I was like, oh, and now there's like another layer of the wall more in the foreground, and as the camera pans back, I was seeing more of them. But apparently they did have a new technology as well, which added depth to 2D drawings. So I'm wondering if it was maybe that new technology in the animation. I'm just trying to find out what the name of it was. So it's let's just see. Does it say? I did see something somewhere. Whereas, oh, hang on, let me try and find the word depth. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Faux plane, it was called, to add depth to flat 2-dimensional paintings. And apparently it was used on the Great Wall of China scene and the final battle where Mulan runs towards, I think it's that shot actually, that's the background, where she leaves Mushu to run to try and save the Emperor through the crowd. It was used in that as well. So, yeah, a lot of new technology in this one. I think I've said everything I can on Mulan. This was an absolute pleasure going back to this one. Do you have any final thoughts on Mulan or anything we haven't said yet?
No, I think we've covered it. Yeah, I think we've covered it very well, to be fair. There's a lot of, to be fair, when you say new technology, it didn't feel like it was, like, it didn't feel out of place because it's been very gradual that they're all doing it. And everything felt like you get a piece by piece with each new movie. So it's quite cool to see. I'm really not looking forward to the first 3D movie, though, out of all of them, not because the movie that is, what movie is it? Is it Chicken Little?
It's Chicken Little.
Do you know
what? US list is Disney Dinosaur, but that's live action and
that doesn't count.
Yeah,
America.
But going with our list, yeah.
But like, the thing is that I'm not that I'm not looking forward to Chicken Little because of it's I've not seen it. It could be great. It could become my favorite. You never know. It could be Black Cauldron 2.0. It could be fucking Aladdin. Like, it could, you don't know. But anyway, but the point is, it's like, because it goes to that 3D look, and the thing is, I think we're gonna miss a lot of this. You know, what's the word when something gets better? Improvement. Yeah, improve. Like, this, we're gonna miss a lot of this constant improvement and how good things look. I don't know. So yeah, it looks amazing, and I think we're seeing really like the pinnacle of what Disney can be. So I'm just gonna bask in the fact of the constant greatness that we're gonna keep getting for a while.
I'm just trying to find. So I've saved an image.
Shit, next is Tarzan, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I was just about to announce that. Yeah, I'm trying to bring up an image of the poster, and it won't let me. I love the theatrical poster to Mulan. It's the one that's like really striking, the black and red poster with her on the horse, sort of like reared up on the horse. Like, just that. I've always loved that color scheme, Sith colors, right? Black and red. I've always loved that, but it's such a striking poster. And the art style on it as well. It looks a little bit different, actually. Her armor design looks different to what it is in the film. Really good poster. That's probably one of my favorites, actually, out of all the Disney films. But yes, next week we will be back. We'll be talking about more Disney. I do want to say, if I just update this real quick, there we go. If you haven't done so already in the comments, please do let us know your thoughts on Mulan if you are just seeing this video now after the fact.
Also, does it look like I've got a unibrow because of the light?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. I was just checking. Anyway.
And do subscribe to the channel as well for more reviews, discussions, live streams, and of course the continuation of this Disney 100 Years of Wonder retrospective, which takes us very nicely on to next week. As you've already mentioned, number 37, Tarzan. I'm actually in so much of a Disney mood right now. I'm just talking about Mulan. I might even watch this tonight. I might, we're a week away, but it's always good to be prepared. And I haven't seen this film in a long time.
Tarzan is Nazrat spelled backwards.
It is Nazrat. Yeah, no, you're right. That's true.
Exactly. They could have called him Nazrat. I'm going to make a parody.
And whilst we've still got, we always talk about this every week. We're going to have, after that, we've got Fantasia 2000. So it's a little bit of a dip, a little bit of a break. And then we've got some absolutely cracking, really unique, interesting Disney films with the likes of Emperor's New Groove, Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet. That's going to be really fun. But this is going to be bittersweet next week because Tarzan did spell the end for the Disney Renaissance. And we'll probably have a discussion as to why that is.
Tarzan,
I was
going to say Tarzan again was one of the better... for a TV show as well. The TV show Tarzan was one of the better ones. I need to see if that's on Disney Plus. I don't think I looked at that one, but that's one of the ones where it's got fucking awesome villains in it. But we could talk about next week. But yeah, Tarzan is great. Got 2 sequels as well.
Yes, yeah, Tarzan and Jane, which was part of the TV show, wasn't it? Was it episodes from the TV show, or did it kickstart the TV show?
I feel like it might. I can't remember, but the one I do remember, I remember the actual other sequel.
Tarzan, yeah.
Yeah, like that one I remember being.
Well, it was similar to Lilo and Stitch, wasn't it? They did Leroy and Stitch, was it?
Stitch the movie was
Stitch the movie. That was it, and then they did Lilo and Stitch. Yeah. But yeah, this one spells the end for the Disney Renaissance, so it's going to be a pretty emotional one next week. I think Disney have never got better than the Renaissance.
Mulan is the last musical Renaissance.
Well, that kind of gives away why I think this spells the end for it, and I think it has to do with the music.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing is, it started with realistically, it started with Little Mermaid, and you've kind of gone now. So it started with. It's weird like that when you think about it, because it started with Little Mermaid, and everyone remembers it as like the 90s Disney Renaissance, but Little Mermaid was 89, and it's the same with they all remember them as all musicals, but realistically, the last one wasn't. So
yeah,
it's quite a nice contrast.
I think, because it was Howard Ashman, wasn't it, and Alan Menken that said, we want to try a Broadway musical approach with this. You have your villains, we've said it before, but the formula, the villain song, the I Want song, the comic relief song, and, all the other ones in between. And Tarzan flirts with that a little bit. There's moments where you've got Carla start singing You'll Be in My Heart, actually in the movie. But then it cuts it off, and then Phil Collins audio comes on over the top. And I'm not bashing the music to this. We'll talk about this more next week. It's an incredible soundtrack. Phil Collins is amazing. I'm a big Phil Collins fan. But it does show a breakaway from the formula in terms of
who I love?
The character singing the songs. Go on.
Do you know who I love? No, Kerchak.
Kerchak is the biggest boy. He's
amazing. I love Kerchak so much. I don't know why. He's just
great. Who does his voice? I did find out, and I was like, oh, he was from that.
He doesn't speak in Kingdom Hearts, and it's great. He just shows up and he walks off. He shows up like the disappointed dad that looks at you.
Lance Henriksen, that's it. Yeah.
He reminds me a little bit of Lenny Henry.
Right. Good night, everybody. We're wrapping it up. Good night, everybody.